There are hundreds and hundreds of books on my Goodreads TBR, over 800, I think just under 900. But I don't think it's accurate that I have that many books that I actually want to read. That list is grossly out of date and inaccurate. So today I'm going to start probably a series of videos where I go through my list of my Goodreads TBR, maybe 100 books at a time, and try to cut that list down so that it is more manageable and that it's actually a helpful indication of the books that I want to read. It's something that I can actually use to reference when I am trying to pick out a new book to read. There's plenty of books on this list that I feel like I've never heard of, although I must have at some point known that they existed when I added them to the list. But I'm going to try to be pretty brutal in terms of kicking things off. If the synopsis doesn't immediately draw me in, I'm going to get rid of it. If I have added a book 2 or beyond of a series that I haven't even read book 1 of, it's off. Easy as that. There's no need for me to add every book in a series that I haven't started. Even if I have started it, there's no telling that I'm gonna like the final book just because I liked the first book. So those will go. And beyond all that, my tastes have just changed over the years. I don't know when I started adding things to Goodreads, but it's definitely not a good representation of the reader that I am now. I would think that the books that I've been adding recently are more aligned with my tastes currently, but the books that I've added in 2013 are probably very far off. I know it'll be interesting for me to go through this list, and I'm hoping that you'll find it entertaining enough to stick around. And I'm also hoping that you will be able to correct me if I make any bad decisions. If I take off a book and you're like, whoa, 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 keep that on there. Maybe you've read it and you loved it and I'm kicking it off my list because I say that it doesn't immediately grab me. I could be very wrong. I want to know that and I want you to stop me. So make sure to sound off down there in the comments and let me know if you think I've made a horrible mistake. All right, so we're all set up here. I'll give you a quick little rundown of what we're looking at. Over here in the left corner is my face. Hello. And then behind me, we have our Goodreads data. So this is just the export that I got from Goodreads. Real simple. It opened up in Sheets, so we're using Sheets today. I deleted some columns already of things that I think are unnecessary. I just left in, we have title, author, rating, the date that I added it, the page count, and then the shelf, which is a little unnecessary because all of these are to read. I'll be using that column to let myself know what I had decided at the end of the video. Basically, if I remove this, I'll have it go red. If I set it to a question mark, it's because I'm not so sure what to do with that one yet, and it'll go yellow. So leaving that in because I don't think I'm going to update as I go. And I don't really have a good reason for that, but I don't know if I will. Over on the right, we have Goodreads itself. I've already pulled up the first book that we're going to look at here, but basically all the important things that I care about on Goodreads are just going to be, obviously the title, the cover I'll probably be looking at, the average star rating might be important, maybe even the amount of ratings that it has. I will also be looking at the synopsis of the book and probably the genre, maybe even page count would come into play. So basically everything on the screen, but that's where I'll be looking when I talk about stuff like that. That's it. Let's dive in. So here we are, book 1, The Walking Dead Compendium, Compendium 1. So Walking Dead has 8 compendiums, I believe, or yeah, it says it right there. There are 8 of these. I do own Compendium 1, and I'm so close to the end of it. So I have this marked as to read. I have actually technically started it, but it was years ago. I do want to finish this. I liked it. I don't know why I ever stopped reading it. So I will be leaving this as to read, but hopefully I get to it sooner rather than later. But we'll see. I do absolutely want to make it through this someday. Next up, we have The Giver. The Giver, I have no interest in that. I must have added this I guess I added it in 2013. I've read that in high school, I believe. And Yeah, I mean, I think it's a cool story. I don't think I appreciated it at the time. So maybe I would like it more if I did read it now, but I don't care to read that again. I don't think World War Z. I do want to read this. I actually borrowed this from my friend, probably in college, and I have the copy upstairs on my shelves. And I started it once and I did like it, but I just put it down and I never picked it back up. I don't know why. So this one will stay. The Zombie Room. I have no idea what The Zombie Room is, honestly. Zombie Room by R.D. Ronald. I must have just been into zombies during 2013. But let's see. So feel free to pause here and read through this synopsis. I am fairly confident that I read the title of this book years ago, thought it was about zombies, and added it to my TBR on Goodreads. This is why I'm doing this. This doesn't have anything to do with zombies. Yeah, this doesn't seem like it's it. The genres here: thriller, fiction, mystery, crime, drama. I don't think it's really my speed. It is certainly not about zombies, and this will not be read by me. If you have read this and you think that's a bad choice that I just made, please let me know. I have no recollection of ever hearing about this book. It's only 218 pages, but yeah, synopsis doesn't do it for me, so we're moving on. Monster Island 1. What is that? Monster Island by David Wellington. This is horror, zombies, fiction, post-apocalyptic. Honestly, maybe this would have been fun to read at the time. Again, it's a zombie book, and that was my thing, I guess, at the time. But currently, this has no appeal to me. I will be removing it from the list. Forever by Pete Hamill. Again, no idea what this is. Here it is. 3.96 is pretty good. Fiction, historical fiction, fantasy, okay. Magical realism, okay. Through the eyes of Cormac O'Connor, granted immortality as long as he never leaves the island of Manhattan, we watch New York grow from a tiny settlement on the tip of an untamed wilderness to the thriving metropolis of today. And through Cormac's remarkable adventures in both love and war, we come to know the city's buried secrets. The way that it's been shaped by greed, race, and waves of immigration, by the unleashing of enormous human energies, and above all, hope. Okay, interesting. It's got time travel in there, which is interesting. I mean, the premise doesn't sound bad. It's well received. The genres are right. 613 pages is not a crazy length, but certainly doesn't sound like it'll be a quick read. Is this a question mark from me? No, I think honestly, even though everything sounds right about it, I'm going to just take it off because it sounds interesting, but I don't know that it sounds like anything that I'm in a rush to read. And I don't have any recollection of hearing about this book. So I'm going to remove it again. As with all of these books, if you think I've made a mistake, please let me know. The Fault in Our Stars by John Green. This is one that I have wanted to read for a long time. I don't own it. I believe I have read some of John Green's books. Looking for Alaska is the only book by John Green that I have read. I've heard really good things. I know Turtles All the Way Down is something that people like. I know people like this one. I really wanted to like Looking for Alaska, and at the time that I read it, it was very much up my alley, but something about it just made me mad. I know I have it listed here as 3 stars, but I remember being unhappy with the way that this book turned out. Not because it was, too sad or anything like that. I think I disagreed with a lot of the choices made, and it wasn't for me. I know it's some people's favorite book. Wasn't for me. That being said, The Fault in Our Stars does sound good. It is a YA book, coming of age. I don't have anything against YA books, but I haven't read one in a while. I feel like if I was going to cry during a book, it would be this. Although I do think that I've had the ending spoiled, which at this point, the book's been out for quite a while, so I don't know if it really counts even as a spoiler. I think I will be taking this off my list. If ever I want to read this, I can just put it back on the list, obviously. But despite the fact that it does sound like I might enjoy it, it's not something that I see myself reaching for anytime soon. So taking it off the list. The Ice Princess. Okay. Again, no recollection of ever hearing about this book. Cover is kind of cool. Mystery crime fiction. I think right away there, I'm going to take it off. The death of her childhood friend is just the beginning. Okay. Yeah. Seems like it's probably pretty intense. It's part of a series. I don't know what this is. The synopsis hasn't sold me. Goodbye. Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close is something that I am interested in. So I think right away I'm just going to keep this on the list. I've not read anything by this author. I don't think I've ever even heard of any of their other books. Oh, actually, everything that is Illuminated, I think I do have on my shelf upstairs. Maybe this stays. I do think that I have... Is there a movie for this? Actually, I think that there is a movie for this with maybe Tom Hanks. I think I have seen the movie. You know what? I am going to take this off of my list, even though I remember wanting to read this book, and I believe I saw the movie, and if it had Tom Hanks, I probably liked it because I like his movies by default. But I have another one of this author's books, so take this off. If I read that book and come back and decide that this is something that I want to read, I'll read it then. Ender's Game, Orson Scott Card. I feel like I've heard something about Orson Scott Card and how he's maybe not a great dude, but I don't know anything about that, so I'm not gonna dig into that right now. I do have Ender's Game on my shelf. I think I got it out of a free little library. Sci-fi, YA sci-fi, which honestly for sci-fi might be the move for me because I haven't really gotten into sci-fi books yet. They all seem too smart for me. Maybe a YA sci-fi is where I need to be looking. Maybe it's a little easier to digest. I don't know. I'll leave it on the list for now. The Sisters Brothers. Okay, I think I remember the cover of this book, but nothing else about it. And I'm confident, yes, okay. The moon looks like a skull. I remember that. I think the cover art was probably what sold me on this. But it's a historical fiction Western. I don't know anything about the story. I know the synopsis is right here. I just read through part of it. It doesn't do anything for me. I think I'm just going to go ahead and remove this one. I'm sure this was added to my TBR because I thought the cover was cool. It doesn't seem like it's in the genres that I'm looking for right now. Not that I am afraid to step out of my genres, but right now this has no appeal. Out. The Zombie Survival Guide, Complete Protection from the Living Dead. This is another Max Brooks book, the author of World War Z. I don't feel the need to read this if I haven't read the other. Not that I think that is actually... I don't think they're actually related other than they're about zombies, but I think, again, I don't know if I like this author. I don't need two of his books on my TBR, and I know, World War Z is more highly rated, so maybe I'll start there. I feel like I remember hearing that it's pretty fun, but it's not really zombie season right now, so I'm going to go ahead and remove this one too. The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I'll pull it up, but I already know this is 100% staying on my list. It is The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I know people loved this when I was in probably, middle school or high school. Everybody I felt like was talking about this book, and I feel like I tried it at some point, but I just didn't get into it. But these days I am into books with humor in them, and this sounds very clever. I've heard that the series falls off at the end and that it should be read as a trilogy more than as a series of, I believe, 5 books. So this stays on for sure. Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime. This one's complicated. I know that I have this book on my shelf upstairs, and I know that people like this book, and it honestly does sound like something that I would enjoy, but I don't think it's the time. I don't think I see myself reaching for this, and if I do, I'd be reaching for it off of my actual physical shelf upstairs. So I don't necessarily need a reminder that this book exists. So I will be removing it from here. I don't know that I will read this in anytime soon. The Time Traveler's Wife. I believe I've seen the movie, and I think there's even a show that I've watched, and I think I liked them both, but having done that, I don't think I feel the need to go back and read the book. Life of Pi, I have not seen the movie, but I think it really blew up when that movie came out, I remember. But honestly, at this point, I don't see myself reaching for the book anytime soon. I guess I should still pull it up just to make sure. Yeah, I mean, it sounds cool. A guy on a boat with a tiger, right? That's all I know. He's stranded in the ocean. Very interesting. Magical realism. Apparently, I didn't realize that there were fantastical elements. I mean, obviously, it's a boy on a boat with a Bengal tiger, so that should have given me some sort of hint there, I guess. But yeah, again, it doesn't feel like anything that I'm gonna read anytime soon. Fellowship of the Ring also kind of falls in the category of something that I don't see myself reading anytime soon, but this one stays. This is, the classic fantasy staple. I do feel like I should read this at some point. I just honestly don't feel like I'm going to like it. So it might stay on this TBR forever, but it will stay. It will stay. If only so that I don't get bullied off of the internet. The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. This just, it's going to go. I know this is another one where I've seen the movie. It was cool, but not really my thing. And I don't see myself reading that. I don't think that mystery, thriller, crime kind of books are necessarily my thing. The Hobbit. I don't really think that I need multiple books in a series on this list, as I've said, but I think it serves enough as a standalone that I think I will leave it on the list. It will stay in my TBR, and I will not kick it off. It feels to me like it's own thing. Again, I don't know. Catcher in the Rye will stay. This is one of those classics that I don't necessarily see myself reaching for, but this is my sister's favorite book of all time. So I do absolutely want to get to this. I'm hoping next year I have like a little goal in my head that I want to read through, all of my favorite people's favorite books. I think would be a really cool kind of experiment to do, just to see different tastes in books and maybe get myself some exposure to things outside of my comfort zone. V for Vendetta by Alan Moore. This should stay too. I honestly would have guessed that this was the first thing on this list. I'm kind of surprised to see it so far down, even though I'm looking here and it is still actually, it is the first day. We're still in one day of me adding things to my Goodreads. So I guess it very well could be the first thing that I added that day. I don't know how they sort this. It's in date order, I believe. So it very well could be the first thing that I ever added to my Goodreads. I would not be surprised if it was. Yeah, I mean, again, it's a classic. Honestly, I'm going to change my mind here, and feel free to correct me in the comments, but I am hearing myself say that this is the first thing on my list. I haven't reached for it yet. I haven't cared to watch the movie, and I feel like I've had plenty of opportunities to do so. I know that I have been in the library and seen it and picked something else up, and yeah, I've turned this down too many times, I think, to leave it on here in good faith, so goodbye. This right here is a big red flag. This seems like it's the second book in a series that I've never heard of. So The Passage by Justin Cronin. Justin Cronin, I feel like I have heard of. But I've never heard of any of these books. It does look like I have The Passage 1 on my TBR as well. I'm definitely taking off book 2 because there's no need for that. Horror fiction, sci-fi, fantasy, post-apocalyptic, vampires. Okay, I mean, that does sound exciting. 32 minutes for one world to die, another to be born. Okay, maybe when we get to The Passage 1, it can stay, but again, Passage 2 can absolutely leave. American Gods, I'm going to skip right over. This can be taken off my list. Batman, Death of the Family. This, I honestly feel like I've read this. Batman, Death of the Family, I've read this one. I've read parts of it. I haven't finished it. So I think comic books sometimes get added a little weird to Goodreads. It looks like I have volume 3 listed as something that I want to read. If I did read it, I would read the collection. I wouldn't just want a volume on here. I will be just removing this. I think I have actually read some of it, and I'm sure I didn't stop because I didn't like it, because there's only been one Batman comic that I've ever put down because I hated it, and it definitely was not this. So I'll be taking it off. There's plenty of Batman material that I want to get to, and I already know that I'm going to be reading Court of the Owls again soon, and I could be wrong, but I think Court of the Owls kind of led into Death of the Family, so maybe if I get to the end of that and I'm inspired, I'll pick this up. But if I am right about that, then something about it did make me put it down. After I finished Court of the Owls and dove into this, it must have been just down a peg. So I feel good about taking it off. The Manhattan Projects, Volume 1, Science Bad. I don't know what this is. I assume comic book. Oh, yes. Okay, this does stay on. Yeah, this for sure stays on. I, at the very least, remember this cover, and I believe I even own this digitally, but I've never picked it up. I think it's like a fantastical kind of alternate history. Well, it's right in front of me. It is a fantasy alternate history historical fiction graphic novel. I do own it, but that's not what this is about. It's about, am I going to read it? Do I want to read it? And honestly, I don't know that I do. So goodbye. Lock and Key, Volume 1, another comic book, and another one that I think I will be removing. And again, I don't really have a reason here other than it just doesn't feel like it's the time. I feel nothing when I look at this. So certainly not the urge to read it. So yeah, it's going to go. Now we have a chunk here. It looks like volumes 2 through 8 of Invincible, which is strange because I've not read any Invincible. I love the show. I've not yet read the series. I certainly do not need all of the volumes 2 through 8 on my list. If I was going to read this, I would be reading a compendium more likely than not. So these are all going to go. I still do want to read Invincible at some point, but I would start at the beginning. Again, here I'm seeing The Flash, Volume 1, Volume 2. I assume that these are related and it's not Rogue's Revolution, Volume 1, Volume 2. Yeah, it looks like I'm right. Volume 1 is Move Forward, Volume 2 is Rogue's Revolution. I do love The Flash, and I will be leaving Volume 1 Move Forward on here, but I don't need Volume 2 on. Same goes for Blue Beetle. I think Blue Beetle's pretty neat, but I've never read any of his stuff. This can stay. I do feel like I'm coming back into a superhero mood recently. Maybe that's because I'm reading Wistful Ascending, or maybe it's because I've been talking about X-Heroes a lot. And I recently picked up a Joker comic book that I've also started. So I'm getting back into the spirit of superheroes. Aquaman Volume 2 doesn't need to be here, though. I would definitely start with Aquaman Volume 1 here. I think all these are just like the New 52 kind of thing. Yeah, it looks like it says it right up here. So I remember being very, very into comic books when the New 52 was happening. And there were just some that I never got to. I was really into the New 52 run of Batman, which I believe is where Court of Owls came in. And I did definitely read some of Aquaman, so I probably have read Volume 1, honestly. But I'll keep it on here because I would like to get into that. But honestly, maybe I'll put this and Blue Beetle as a question mark because I want to read some of their comic books. Honestly, maybe The Flash too. I want to read some of these, but I'm more interested in reading about Aquaman than I am in this specific volume of Aquaman. So maybe I'll revisit this and try to find just a different entry point into Aquaman, Blue Beetle, The Flash, and start from there. Batman Hush, Volume 2 doesn't need to be here. Honestly, Volume 1 doesn't need to be here. I've read Batman Hush, and it was great. I have it right on my shelf to my right. So those can stay. Batman The Long Halloween, I do not have on my shelf. I have not read this, and I do absolutely want to. So that can stay. Brightest Day Volume 1, I am sure this is another comic book. Yes, it is. We're in a comic book section here. I don't know anything about this. It looks like it's a bunch of superheroes coming together. Oh, it's only a 3-part series. Looks like it's got some cool people. Is that Dead Man? I'm gonna look into this more before I commit to nothing. Commit to leaving it on my TBR. But for now, I will get rid of 2 and 3, and I'll think about Volume 1. Walking Dead Compendium 2. Get Out. Joker. This I own. I started reading it recently, so this should actually change to currently reading. The Amazing Adventures of Cavalier and Clay? No idea what that is. Oh, I actually think one of my friends has recently said that this is like one of his all-time favorite books. It's historical fiction and literary fiction, which are typically not genres that I reach for, but I do think, maybe Sam, was it you? Sam, do you like this book? I'm going to leave this on here. I'm not even going to leave a question mark here because I'm fairly confident that he just said that he liked this book the other day. This stays. Empire Falls. Who Are You? Empire Falls by Richard Russo. Another lit fic. I love when they say audiobook as a genre. That's not a genre. I just read the synopsis here. Didn't do anything for me. This one is gonna go away. A Thousand Splendid Suns by Khaled Hosseini does stay. And I know there's been a couple books on here that I said, well, I don't need to keep this one because I already have a different book on here by the same author. And I do see And the Mountains Echoed also on here. But this stays. I read Kite Runner in high school probably, and I forgot about that book, but that book really had an impact. So these stay. I even own these books, and they are on my shelf. Yeah, these will stay. Khaled Hosseini, at least in the book that I've read, it was fantastic. Gripping, brutal, but really beautiful story. Maybe beautiful is the wrong word. A really well-told story, horrible as it was. A Tale Dark and Grim, Adam Gidwitz. Okay, this is a middle grade fantasy children's story. Hansel and Gretel walk out of their own story and into 8 other classics. I mean, could be really fun, but that's nothing that I am in the mood for right now. But I mean, could be neat someday. Cirque du Freak, another one that I have no recollection of ever knowing existed, but here it is. Looks like YA vampires. Yeah, not for me right now. Fight Club. It's kind of a short book. Feels like it's kind of a classic. I love the movie. I know how it ends. I don't think it would do anything to shock me. I've not read by this author, but nah, I'm taking that off the list. Divergent. I actually think I have read Divergent, and I don't think I cared for it at all. I think I read it at just the right time, too, when I was reading like Hunger Games and things like that. And if it didn't draw me in then, it's definitely doesn't have a chance of drawing me in now. Black Swan Green. No idea. David Mitchell sounds familiar. YA coming of age story. Literary fiction again. Yeah, I don't really think this says anything to me. I just read through the synopsis there. It doesn't sound like anything I'm going to read anytime soon. Drive. This couldn't be like Drive the movie, could it? I mean, it's a very short book, but yeah, nope, has no real appeal to me. So goodbye. Gregor the Overlander. I put the whole box set in here. Fantasy YA middle grade. Oh, Suzanne Collins. I'm sure I just added this because I liked the Hunger Games, but this does nothing for me. I'm taking this out. Hyperbole and a Half. I actually have read this, at least most of it. So that can go as well. Dr. Sleep. I have not read any Stephen King. If I did, I would not start with Dr. Sleep. I would read The Shining first. This can go. Killing Jesus by Bill O'Reilly. I can tell you right now, this is gonna go. Again, just strictly has no appeal. Okay, we're up to Cormac McCarthy here. Blood Meridian and No Country for Old Men. These are gonna stay. I loved The Road too much to remove these. I will absolutely read more Cormac McCarthy, and I do not know which one of these I would want to start with. If you have read these, please let me know where you recommend starting. They're both a 4.16 on Goodreads. These both stay, absolutely, no questions asked. The Good Luck of Right Now, Matthew Quick. I know Matthew Quick's work. What else did he write? Oh, Silver Linings Playbook and Forgive Me, Leonard Peacock. I did like both of those. I read them both. I think, again, maybe that was college that I read those. And The Good Luck of Right Now, I don't remember anything about this. I'm sure I added it because I liked those other two books. I think I read Silver Linings Playbook like twice, maybe 3 times. Watched the movie. It was fine. I think if I read this back then, I probably would have loved it. I was really into books that focused on mental health, and that seems to be kind of Matthew Quick's strong suit. But right now, it's just not what I need. So that can go. The Girl with All the Gifts can absolutely stay. I started this book. I'm halfway through it. I love everything about this book conceptually. I have no idea why I ever stopped reading it, other than I know that I just wasn't reading really when I was initially picking this up. I'm hoping to get to this within the next year, so this is staying for sure. M.R. Carey just put out, or I don't know if he just put out, but they have other books that came out fairly recently. This is it, Infinity Gate. So it's just this one book that came out, I think recently. Yeah, okay, this came out in March. And I've heard really, really good things, again, by Sam Harrison. So the M.R. Carey, you can stay. The Last Question by Isaac Asimov. I have not read anything by Isaac Asimov, and he does feel like one of those authors that I would like to have read. I feel like I would just want to know if I like his stuff. I don't know anything about this off the top of my head. It looks like it's a collection of short stories. That could be a really easy entry point into Isaac Asimov. Who knows? This will stay on the list. On the Beach also is absolutely going to stay. This is another book that I picked up when I wanted to be reading, but I wasn't really into the habit. And I got, again, probably about halfway through it, and I put it down and I haven't picked it up. But it's post-apocalyptic, dystopian stuff. I think there's submarines. Submarine Captain. This stays. This stays. The Goldfinch by Donna Tartt. Yeah, I would love to read Donna Tartt. I think I've actually heard that you should read The Goldfinch before Secret History. I know they're not related, but I think people say that, or I don't know if that's because people like Secret History so much, and it maybe it feels like you can't go back to The Goldfinch after reading that. But this definitely stays. I would love to check this out at some point. Uglies by Scott Westerfield. The movie trailer just dropped the other day, and the movie trailer didn't really speak to me. I think this can go comfortably. Alas, Babylon. This sounds very familiar. It's another post-apocalyptic dystopian read, which it was my thing for a while, that kind of book. But this doesn't... I think I'm going to remove this for now. I have a bunch of other post-apocalyptic dystopian reads on here already, and I don't remember hearing anything about this book. I just read the synopsis. I don't know if it speaks to me. Earth Abides by George R. Stewart. Again, another post-apocalyptic dystopian. I feel like I probably went to Reddit and looked for post-apocalyptic dystopian stories and got a bunch. It seems like there's been a few here right in a row, but doesn't speak to me right now, so goodbye, Earth Abides. Parasite and Feed. I do remember the cover of Feed, and I remember this cover as well, Parasite. It's horror sci-fi with zombies in it. This one, I think Feed is a similar stuff in it. I don't actually know if I've heard anything about these, but I do know that I saw them a lot in bookstores back in 2020. But I don't think I need these right now. I will be removing both of those from my list. Onyx and Crake. Crake. Margaret Atwood. I know Margaret Atwood is good. But again, here we are with our dystopian post-apocalyptic read. Honestly, I've never finished Handmaid's Tale. This one feels like it definitely fits under the category of I have Handmaid's Tale. I started reading it at some point. I put it down. I should finish that before I commit to reading more of Margaret Atwood's books, but it does actually sound pretty interesting after having read the synopsis here. Just not the time for it yet. Sort of like a rock star in Boy 21. It's 2 more Matthew Quicks. I took the last one off. I'm going to take these 2 off for the same reason without honestly even looking at them. I just don't think I'm in the mood for Matthew Quick's kinds of books right now. The Casual Vacancy by J.K. Rowling, I'm going to just swiftly remove that. Harry Potter was great. It was a big part of my childhood. I don't have a huge interest in supporting J.K. Rowling at this point, though, so that can go. Little horror graphic novel. It doesn't sound like anything that I honestly am into right now. There are a few horror graphic novels and manga and things like that I do want to read, but this one doesn't have much appeal right now, honestly. The Boy Who Fell Out of the Sky. This is a memoir. No, I don't want to read about this. It sounds horrible. Content-wise, it sounds like it was a horrible thing that happened. I don't feel the need to put that into my brain right now. The Long Ships. Is this a Viking story? That's fun. I'm going to remove that. Sounds cool. I don't have any interest in that right now. So I couldn't explain why, but going off vibes alone, that's a no. A Canticle for Leibowitz? Canticle for Leibowitz. Again, this feels like something that I just heard somebody talking about on the internet. Post-apocalyptic sci-fi classic. Well. It doesn't sound super up my alley, to be honest, but I do want to just check because I feel like somebody was just talking about this book. So I'm going to put a question mark there because I want to go back and check before I make a final determination here. But yeah, that you might end up staying. Canticle for Leibowitz. We'll see. This is another dystopian book, sci-fi. And it looks like it's a piece of Russian literature. Interesting. Set in the 26th century AD, We is the classic dystopian novel and was the forerunner of works such as 1984 and Brave New World. 1984 and Brave New World are both things that I have wanted to read for a while now, so maybe this should stay. I honestly have no recollection of ever hearing about this. I'm gonna remove it. The fact that it's a forerunner for 2 books that I haven't read, that's not enough to sell me on it. It sounds interesting, but again, I'm sci-fi stupid, so I'm skipping it for now. The Dog Stars by Peter Heller. I remember this cover, but I'm reading the synopsis and it's not jumping out at me as something that I'm dying to read. I even feel like I have friends that did read this and that liked it, but I don't know, something about it. It's just not speaking to me right now. Maybe if I was in more of a post-apocalyptic mood, I'd be more inclined to leave it, but right now, I'm gonna kick it off the list. Batman the Man Who Laughs, I don't know why I haven't read this. This is absolutely gonna stay on my list, no questions asked. And honestly, same with Batman Noel. This is another one, I don't know why I haven't read it. So yeah, I'll be leaving this on as well. The Country of Last Things? Paul Auster. More dystopia. Who hurt me so bad that I wanted to read so many books about the end of the world back in 2014. Maybe I have just healed to the point where, again, this doesn't really speak to me. I, again, will be removing this from my list. I will, no question, be removing this from my list because it is book 2. Oh, it's Cormac McCarthy. Well, yeah, still, this should go. Do I have the first on here? Oh, All the Pretty Horses I've heard of. That should be on my TBR. I'm going to update that piece at least. Because if I'm going to read one of these, it'll be the first book in the series. So, Goodbye the Crossing, hello, All the Pretty Horses. Absolutely. Okay, next up, looks like we have a Justice League comic book. I do love it when Batman gets to be the best. So maybe that stays. It'll stay. Although, no, I don't see myself reading this anytime soon. Yeah, goodbye. Count of Monte Cristo, I think, should stay. This is one of those classics that feels like it's a classic for a reason. I don't know if it'll be necessarily for me, and it is huge. 1,276 pages. But it can stay. I do feel like I want to read that at some point. Cry, The Beloved Country. I don't doubt that it's great, but it doesn't sound like it's for me. This doesn't speak to me. I will be removing it from my TBR. The World Without Us by Alan Wiseman. It honestly, it could be really cool. It seems like it's about what happens when we're gone. Could be really interesting, but it's really hard to get me to read a nonfiction. So I don't think this will be the one to get me into them. Those Who Wish Me Dead. Thrillers don't necessarily seem to be my speed. The plan is to get Jace off the grid while police find the two killers. Doesn't sound like it's for me. Out. The Dead and Those About to Die. History, nonfiction. History has never been my jam. Yeah, truly nothing about this has any appeal to me. Not in the realm of my interests. Orphan Train, that's a neat title. Another historical fiction, again, not really my thing. I have no recollection of ever hearing about this book, and the synopsis here has not grabbed me. So that's another one to be removed. Mortal Instruments by Cassandra Clare. Seems to be a YA romance with vampires? Yeah, that doesn't sound like it's for me. Another Neil Gaiman, and I see another one a couple rows down. I'm just going to remove them. I don't want to get into it too much, but for me, with the accusations made, it's guilty until proven innocent, which that's just me. But again, we don't need to get into that. They just don't need to be on my shelf right now. Big Little Man in Search of My Asian Self. Could be cool. Could be interesting. The synopsis sounds interesting, but again, it's just hard to get me to read a nonfiction. I don't feel like this will be the one for me right now. Swan Song by Robert McCammon. That's a wild cover. This one can stay. I do think this one sounds interesting. I feel like I've definitely heard of this one before. It's horror, post-apocalyptic kind of horror, set in a wasteland with big monsters. Yeah, I don't know, that sounds pretty cool. He is the man with the scarlet eye, a malevolent force that feeds on the dark desires of the countless followers he has gathered into his service. His only desire is to find a special child named Swan and destroy her. But those who would protect the girl are determined to fight for what is left of the world and their souls. Yeah, honestly sounds really interesting, and possibly on Kindle Unlimited, if this is to be believed. Yeah, this can stay. We Live in Water, I own this, and I brought it with me camping one time, and it got all wet, which I thought was funny because of the title. I kept it. It was a collection of short stories. I remember them all being pretty dark, pretty sad, but I also remember them being pretty hard hitting, and I remember that I was drawn into all of the short stories pretty quickly. So this one will stay, because again, I do own it. I have read some of these stories, and I could see myself getting back into it sometime. All right, we're 100 books in, and it looks like we cut it down to 28. That's awesome. This is exactly what I'm trying to do. Got rid of a lot of stuff there. And there's also several question marks, meaning that this may go down even further once I review it a little more. This is great. This is exactly what I'm going for. But that took a while. So I am going to stop here for today. And that brings us to the end. That's where I'm going to stop today. We went through 100 books. It took longer than I expected, but we got rid of a lot. So I feel good about that. Again, make sure to let me know down in the comments if you think that I took something away that should have been kept on, and just as importantly, Let me know if you think I kept something on that you think should be removed. Be sure too to let me know if there was anything that you didn't like about the setup. Was it too distracting having the sheet on one side and Goodreads on the other? Do you think it'd be better if I just edited in the book cover of whatever book I was talking about? Do you think it was unnecessary to have the screen recording at all? Let me know, because I will be making like 9 more of these videos unless somebody stops me. But thank you for watching, and I'll see you down in the comments. Bye.